Thank you for joining the Advancing Excellence podcast. In this episode, we're discussing the remarkable support the Neuro Assistance Foundation provides to those affected by spinal cord injuries. Since its founding, the organization has remained committed to helping people regain independence by offering assistance and services not covered by insurance. Let's listen now.
Welcome to the Advancing Excellence podcast, where we explore the people and organizations making a real difference in our communities. I'm your host, Janice Kleins, Marketing Manager for AOE, and today we're diving into an important conversation about spinal cord injuries and the incredible support available through the Neuro Assistance Foundation. Our guest today is Karen Stahl, Executive Director of the Neuro Assistance Foundation, NAF. NAF is dedicated to providing critical support to individuals and families living with spinal cord injuries. Since its founding, the organization has remained committed to helping people regain independence by offering assistance with medical equipment, supplies, and services often not covered by insurance. Beyond financial aid, NAF also provides emotional support, education, and advocacy to help individuals navigate life after a spinal cord injury. You can learn more about their impactful mission at www.neuroassistance.org. Karen, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me, Janice. I really do appreciate this opportunity.
So let's just start with your story. Can you share a little bit about your background and what led you to get involved with the Neuro Assistance Foundation?
Sure, that's a great question. Prior to my work for Neuro Assistance Foundation, I was a clinical specialist at Baylor Scott & White Institute for Rehabilitation on the spinal cord injury team. So what your listeners may not know is there are only 18 hospitals nationwide that fall into the category of model systems for spinal cord injury, and Baylor Scott & White Institute for Rehab is one of these hospitals. So we had a whole team dedicated to working just with individuals living with spinal cord injury. And during my 10 years on the spinal cord injury team, Neuro Assistance Foundation really filled in the gaps where insurance fell short. So many of my clients needed specialized equipment to be able to discharge home safely that insurance wouldn't pay for. So Neuro Assistance Foundation stepped in, paid for the equipment so my patients could go home with their families versus needing to discharge to a nursing home. So that's how I became familiar with Neuro Assistance Foundation, and that led me to the role that I'm currently in.
Okay. So for listeners who may not be familiar, what is Neuro Assistance Foundation and what kind of support do you provide to people living with spinal cord injuries?
So Neuro Assistance Foundation is a 501c3 public charity that's based in Texas. We were established 17 years ago through the friendship of our two founders. So one of our founders was living with spinal cord injury, and she began working with one of our other founders, Cindy. And through their friendship, Cindy saw the hardships that Bev was facing on a daily basis by not having equipment that she needed to live a full life. At one point in time, Bev didn't have access to a hospital bed. And at another point in time, her wheelchair was damaged in a car accident. So what your listeners may not know is when you live with spinal cord injury, a wheelchair is your legs. It's your mode of transportation. It's how you navigate your community. And insurance, Medicare, Medicaid, and the Medicare replacement insurance plans will only pay for a new wheelchair once every 5 years. So if your wheelchair becomes damaged to the point that it's unusable, the person living with spinal cord injury is responsible for the repairs or for purchasing a new wheelchair. Manual wheelchairs can cost up to $5,000, and the power chairs that many of our clients need to use can cost upward to $50,000, and that truly is out of the reach of most Americans if insurance isn't helping offset that cost. Other equipment that we provide, specialized shower chairs. So oftentimes people living with spinal cord injury have a difficult time regulating their blood pressure, and their skin is very fragile. So they do need specialized shower chairs to be able to access a shower. Medicare and Medicaid will not pay for these specialized shower chairs that can cost up to $2,000.
My goodness, it's so expensive.
It's so expensive. Medicare says that a person living with spinal cord injury can just take a bed bath. And that truly is not an efficient way to clean neurologically impaired skin. So we'll jump in and we'll help cover the cost of a shower chair. I think we just purchased one earlier this week that was about $1,800 for a client. So that way they can go home with their family.
Wow, that is so kind and just generous of the NAF to do that. So my next question, can you help our listeners understand what a spinal cord injury is and how it changes daily life for someone affected?
That is a really good question. So I will be brief because I teach an introductory class that once a semester at one of the local universities, and we just scratch the surface in 4 hours. So I'll try to be brief. We don't have 4 hours for this today. But spinal cord injury truly is an injury to the spinal cord itself. So we have our spine that are bones, and we have the spinal cord that runs through the bones and that creates movement. It's neurons or nerves. So it's injury to those nerves that can impair sensation and movement. So sometimes the injury can cause complete paralysis, and sometimes the injury can cause weakness or paresis. The injuries are classified into two categories: traumatic, meaning that it's caused by a trauma event to the body, or non traumatic, meaning a disease like neuromyelitis optica, transverse myelitis, or a tumor that's impacting the spinal cord and degrading the nerves. But I will say that non-traumatic spinal cord injury is a bit of a misnomer, Janice, because the loss of movement and sensation, even if it's caused by a disease, is no less traumatic to the person experiencing that paralysis.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah.
So I know you touched on this already, but what are some of the biggest challenges families face when it comes to equipment, supplies, or insurance coverage? I know we talked a little bit about that, but is there more that you can add?
Yeah, so the hidden costs of healthcare, right? So ramps. You need a ramp to get into your home if you're someone living with a spinal cord injury that's using a wheelchair. Insurance won't cover that. Neuro Assistance Foundation will jump in and cover those costs. Our biggest ask from the pediatric population, from the hospitals that treat children, is clean catheters. So for our low income families, clean catheters can cost up to $700 a month. That's quite expensive, and that's even with insurance coverage or Medicaid. So these families sometimes will resort to boiling and catheters in an attempt to reuse them, and that's truly not very sanitary, and it can open up the child to a severe urinary tract infection called urosepsis that can cause multi-system organ shutdown and a prolonged hospital stay. So we'll jump in and help cover the cost of catheters, so that way our families don't have to resort to that practice.
Now, construction is a high risk industry. Can
Yes.
you talk to our listeners about the connection between spinal cord injury and construction related accidents?
Yes. So in the construction industry, the evidence shows that there is a high risk of falls, right? So the second leading cause of spinal cord injury, guess what that is, Janice?
Would be falls, I would think.
It is falls. Yeah. It is. So now the fall might result in an injury to the spine or the spinal cord. When I was working at Baylor, at any given time, we had at least one client or one patient on the spinal cord injury unit that was hospitalized because of a fall that was related to the construction industry.
So the connection to construction safety is so important for our listeners to understand. Do you have a story you can share that illustrates the impact that NAF has made to someone with a spinal cord injury?
Yes. So recently we had a client before I was at Neuro Assistance Foundation, I was at Baylor, like I mentioned before. And we had a client who had come into the hospital from fall off of scaffolding. So he needed a lot of support. He was a low income earner, and Neuro Assistance Foundation was able to supply him a custom manual wheelchair and also bathroom equipment so he could discharge home with his family and go back to his community. He was not living in the DFW area. That's where Baylor Scott and White Hospital is. So we helped fund the equipment he needed to go home with his family.
Wow. I mean, these stories really show the human side of the work that the NAF is doing. How do fundraising events like Clays for Kids and Hot Hatch Run, Walk, and Roll help sustain your programs?
That's a great question, Janice. So both of our events, Clays for Kids and Hot Hatch Run, Walk, and Roll, support our two programs, Quality of Life for Children and Quality of Life for Adults. Specifically, though, Clays for Kids only supports our pediatric program. So I mentioned earlier the cost of catheters. Well, the entry fee itself for Clays for Kids can support up to 3 months of catheters for a child that are sanitary.
Wow,
So
that's really great.
it is great. So that's how we use our funds. Our funds come in, we have very low overhead costs, so that way we can spend the majority of the money that we have coming in to support our clients that are
Awesome. I mean, it just shows you community support makes such a difference.
it
So
truly
looking
is.
ahead, what are your hopes for NAF and for improving care and resources for people with spinal cord injuries?
Well, our mission is simple. Our mission is to fill the gaps where insurance falls short. As Neuro Assistance Foundation continues to grow, we would like to service the entire state of Texas. Currently, we're only supporting 108 counties in Texas. That's about the size of Michigan, just to give you some perspective. But we're hoping to grow to fill every county in Texas with our support and to eventually grow out of the state of Texas as we continue to grow as an organization. Because we know that if people living in Texas are struggling to have their needs met, that other people are also struggling.
Most likely, I'm sure. So finally, how can listeners get involved and support the mission of NAF?
Sure. So our listeners can go to our website, neuroassistance.org. You can certainly donate if you have the opportunity to do that. There's a donation link on our website that's open 365 days a year. You could participate in one of our fundraising events, or if you're interested, you could even sponsor an event for Neuro Assistance Foundation. And certainly you could follow us on our social media on Facebook or on Instagram.
Karen, this has been such an enlightening conversation. Thank you for the incredible work you do and for taking the time to share it with us today.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate your time, Janice.
And for our listeners, remember to visit neuroassistance.org to learn more about the Neuro Assistance Foundation and how you can get involved. Whether through donations, volunteering, or simply spreading awareness, every action makes a difference in supporting people living with spinal cord injuries. Thank you for tuning in to the Advancing Excellence podcast. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast and like this episode. Until next time, keep advancing excellence in everything you do.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of the Advancing Excellence podcast. If you have any comments or questions, please get in touch with us at info@aoeteam.com. Don't forget to follow AOE on LinkedIn at Advancing Organizational Excellence, and be sure to subscribe to this podcast so you never miss an episode.